All right. Hi.
I was like, wait, the number is there now. They're moving.
I know. Here we go. Okay. Jayne, thanks so much for doing this with me today.
Not a problem. I will always talk about teaching with you, Mary.
Yeah, for sure. So I've chosen Jayne Day. She is, I've chosen Jayne Day. Excuse me, I've chosen Jayne Day. She's a good friend of mine, but she's also a teacher of what? We just discussed this. How many years now?
I've been teaching since 2003, so I guess that makes to 2017, that makes almost, I think this is my 15th year.
And has it always been English?
English and history. I started off with English, and then I added the history into it about the fourth or fifth year I was teaching, and I've been doing English and history ever since. I've added a drama class to it over the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, okay. So. Okay, cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself as far as teaching goes?
Well, like I said to you, teaching is a second career for me. I was a cost accountant for 23 years, but I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I went back to school at 40. To finish my bachelor's and got my teaching credential and started teaching. So I always use myself as an example to the kids as well as, just because you didn't do college right after high school doesn't mean you can't make that change. I always knew I wanted to teach. It just took me at times to get there.
And has it always been middle school?
Yes. That is a yes. I think, and I've said this before, I think middle school is your last chance to make that difference to a kid. In elementary, they all love you. They all like school. High school, they've made that choice. They're either finishing, they're gritting their teeth, they like it, or they've dropped out. Middle school is your last chance to take that kid who doesn't like school and change them into somebody who may like school. I really believe that. I also think when you look at teaching, when I look back, I think most people have either their favorite or their least favorite teacher. One of those two in middle school. And when I say that, people go, oh, you're right. You're right. It's either my favorite or my least favorite. And I think those two things go together. I think that those are the teachers that either make a difference one way or the other. And I want to be that teacher that makes the difference the right way. I like it when the kids come back and they say, I didn't used to like school. I didn't like English. I didn't like reading. I thought history was dumb until. So that's part of why I do it.
So weren't you teacher of the year at one point?
A long time ago. No, 2011. 2011, wow. I was Fresno Unified School District's middle school teacher of the year.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
So, yeah, and I carry the little thing around. It's up there in the corner on the bookcase. Oh, but I carried it around, and I'd walk into the kids and say, look what I got.
That's awesome.
You got to be nice to me now.
Yeah. So what led to that? What led to the teacher of the year?
Well, I don't know because, you're nominated by your peers. I had been nominated before and nothing happened. But I do remember that year. What was interesting is I know I was nominated by 2 people. And I know that my principal also said something. They then go and talk to the principals. But then there's this panel, and you had to go down and sit in front of very important people who were asking you questions about your pedagogy and your this and your that. And I'm thinking, oh, man. But here's what I remember. And I think this I don't know if this was this way, but I think it was part of the difference. You're familiar with Taylor Molly, the one who What Do Teachers Make? He does the routine, and that's one of my favorites. What do teachers make? They make a difference. And they asked me about my teaching philosophy, and I brought that up. 1 or 2 of them had seen it. 1 or 2 of them were frantically writing notes down, and I think that may have been it. I am somebody who thinks outside of the box. And I think that may have been why they gave it to me that year. Is it's I think outside of the box, and we're always looking for those people who think outside
of the box. And I think you do absolutely. I like the fact that you engage your students first. getting to know them, because you can't really make a difference unless you know your students.
You have to build relationship with your students, and that happens from the first day. One of the things, and I say to the kids in class, I have to go slow to go fast. I think too often we start the year with this thing of, oh my gosh, the first test is this date, and this is happening this, and I have to hit the ground running, and we're going to go. And I haven't built any relationship, and I haven't set the routines, and then you find yourself going back and having to do that over and over and over again. If I'm willing to take those first 2 weeks and build that relationship and build those routines and introduce the concepts that I'm going to lay everything on for the rest of the year, all of a sudden October comes and I'm not in a panic because we can go fast now. I spent August going slow, spent the first week of September going medium, and then I can start going fast. I'm not finding myself in November going, what did we say? Going back to revisit rules. What do you mean you don't remember where something is found in your agenda or where something is in your binder? All of those things are done. So.
Okay. So do you want to discuss your school site?
I love my school site. There's absolutely nowhere else that I would want to teach. And my principal knows that. I teach at Cooper Academy. It is part of the IB, International Baccalaureate Continuum. IB has been around, and it's at Fresno High. It was started in Switzerland as a way for diplomat students to be educated, because you're looking at an environment where you have students coming from all around the world. It is so much bigger than that. It's just a concept-based learning, inquiry-based learning, where the students literally take what we're doing content-wise, but connect it through concepts like community, structure, relationship, identity. So I'm not just teaching about the colonies, right? I'm teaching that the colonies are part of a community. Oh, gee, do you have a community? So what happened in their community? How can you connect that to the community that you live in? How is that community you live in more a global community? And they compose their own questions so that I'm not the only one asking questions. So if I have concepts of community and relationship, and I'm asking them, what was the relationship between the colonists and the people back in England? Okay, now you make a question using the word communities and relationships. How can you bridge that out? We all know that middle school students, any students, humans, we tend to be very self-centered. So as soon as I can start forcing them to make connections between themselves and the content and themselves and the world, it means more to them. So Cooper, that's the way we work here. Everything's concept-driven. Our kids, one of the things I always like to make sure people understand is we're not a magnet school. We're not a private school. We're a public school, school of choice. Most of our kids come from the neighborhood. 70% of our children live in and around here. My kids aren't any different than any other middle school student that goes to any other middle school. But when you walk on this campus, it's different.
They don't have to meet any qualifications in order to.
They have to have been proficient in either English or math one time since 3rd grade.
Okay.
Now, when you stop and look at that, even with EL standards, when you bring in the English learners, at 3rd grade standards, even most of our EL students are hitting proficient at that level. So our kids, again, it's not hard to get in here. It's not. In fact, I think when we opened, I think the number was 78 or 79% of the neighborhood kids qualified to come.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you about that actually. Like what does that say about our community? Yeah, what does that say about our community? Because we all know Fort Miller, right? And so that's the complaint that I hear.
Yeah. What's interesting, and it's true, I do think the number was 78%. 78% of the neighborhood kids qualify, and yet every morning I see a bunch of them lined up to get on the bus to go over to another middle school. And the biggest difference, in all honesty, to me, number one, it's a huge difference education-wise. I mean, we're IB, they're not, but they will be going to the IB high school. They feed into Fresno High.
Fort Miller does.
Yes, they
exactly.
do.
So why not have your student
Why not
prepared?
start here?
Exactly.
The biggest difference, what we hear from a lot of the parents, the kids say, well, I don't want to have to wear a uniform. And I'm like, okay, for starters, it's not a uniform.
Right.
You have to wear pants, okay?
Right.
And you have to wear a colored shirt, but
Right.
it has to be tucked in.
Right. Right.
Okay. So when I talk to parents, I'm like, if you're going to let pants and a tucked in collared shirt stop your child
Right.
from getting an excellent education, where's your power? Who has the power then in your household? Because me as a parent, and you know, my daughter was the goth princess. I always tell everybody, I know difficult. My daughter at 12 was the goth
That's
princess.
awesome.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, trust me, there was push. This is the last chance you have, because when that child's in high school, you can't push high schooler to do anything. You just can't. You know, middle school is your last chance to have that pull, even if you think that you don't. So yeah, I it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that's good to know. My daughter, well, you know, Sophia's 12.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I'm really on her right now she's 7th grade, and I'm just on top because
it's the age where it's tough because they want you to let them be in charge. You want them to be in charge.
Right.
But they lack the organizational skills to do it.
Yes.
And we actually, that's one of the things we actually specifically teach. We use agendas, yes, and everybody says they use agendas, but every teacher on campus has made the commitment. You are writing in your agenda. And here's my thing with the agendas, okay? When I worked in an office, I didn't walk into the office, sit down and say, okay, today this is what I'm going to do, and my objective in this class is which okay, how many classes have you seen? We will write the objective in our agenda. What does that do? Students, well, I will be able to, you know, break this down. No big deal. When is it important? When I worked in the office at the end of the day before I left, what did I not get done today?
Right.
Pulled it out, I'd make the notes. My students write in their agenda the last 5 minutes of class. What did we do today? In fact, what did we do today? They're already telling me. I wrote 2 case studies on the learner profile traits. Great, we're writing it down. Who didn't finish? Raise your hand. I didn't finish. Great. So I need to finish my case studies tonight. That's what they're writing. When are they due? Tomorrow. Great, on tomorrow. Write it in there. I'm training them how to do it, because writing what I'm going to do in class, that's silly. In my opinion, that's silly.
Yeah.
Writing what we did in class and what you didn't get done, that's important. There's that organization. So that now what does my kid do? When he goes home, I'm telling the parents, look in there. If it's blank, it shouldn't be blank. If your kid says, oh, the teacher didn't make us write, we're telling every single one of our students, it's not the teacher's job. It's your job.
Right.
So me today, that was the one thing, you know, I said, put your finger on first period. Is it blank? Raise your hand. Great. Put a pink box around it. What'd you do in first period? Write it down in there. Yes, the teacher should have taken you through it, but if she didn't, maybe something happened. Whose agenda is it? So now when Sophia, if she was my student, comes home and she shows you her agenda, it doesn't say, student will be able to write 3 different figurative language. No, it doesn't. It says, I learned 3 different figurative language. Oh, really, Sophia? You did? What'd you learn? I learned onomatopoeias, similes, and metaphors. Great. Now she can have that conversation with you instead of this blank agenda where, well, what did you do in first period? Well, I don't remember.
Right. That makes me think about how I can design this for my own students. You know, I don't know if you know, but they don't bring anything to school with them. Everything is left at school, and our whole goal is to prepare them to go back to their
regular
schools.
school.
However, how do we do that? Because they're going to have agendas and backpacks and all that at their school. So I'm finding that makes me think about ways of holding them accountable to what they need to do in class. We discussed it this year, the other English teacher and I did, Christine, because not giving extended late dates. You know,
you can't.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah.
And because I was wanting them to have every opportunity to succeed, but I think with the level that my students at, and especially with their behavior, it's almost like they kind of expect it at this point.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
So here's what because we had, the big knockdown drag out on accountability and late work and this and that. And we have, this gradual in 6th grade here, students can retake everything. They can turn things in late. They get a failing grade. They can redo it. Tests they can redo. That's 6th grade. They're teaching them to succeed. 7th grade, you can redo any assignment up until 2 weeks before the end of the quarter. You cannot retake a test because the test is what? It's my assessment of what you know.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's not what you can re-know. It's what you know. All right? 8th grade, and this is the agreement that we had to hash out. I said, here's what we have to come up with. Late, there's a due date. Okay? So let's say something is due on Friday. You have a late period 1 week past that.
Okay.
For reduced credit. You can't get an A on late work because A means exceptional. And you can't be exceptional if you're late.
Right.
Okay? But now here's the problem, because you have that student who the late date comes and they didn't turn it in. And this is, remember we were talking about success? These students have been successful at failing, right? That late date comes, oh, well, I didn't do it.
Right.
Okay? They've been successful this way. Here's the thing. So let's just, 10 points is easy, right? Here's an assignment that was worth 10 points. They didn't do it on time. Okay. So the best grade they can get late is a B. So they're going to get 8 points on it. That date comes. They didn't do it. Right? I put a 0 in. Yes, I know the power of 0. Watch. And I've read Ruby Payne. I know all the books. Watch. So she gets a 0. Okay. She's going to say, well, I'm not going to get it.
Okay.
We tell him, you can redo that assignment for a not passing grade. Okay? So now, she can redo that up until 2 weeks before the end. Not going to get a passing grade. What that means is the best grade she's going to get is a 6.
Okay.
Which is a D minus.
Yes.
She could get a 5. But the power of 0 now is gone.
Right.
She has not been rewarded with a passing grade.
Right.
But she's been held accountable for it.
Right.
And when you take them through, I always do the power of 0 lesson, all right? It takes 2 perfect 10s. It's 2 or 3 to get rid of 1 0.
Right.
All right? And when you take them through a math thing where it's, Sally got a 10 and 2 zeros, that's 3 assignments at 10. What's her score? She got a 30%. She got an F minus, okay?
Right.
To get rid of those 2 zeros, she's going to have to get like 5 10s.
Right.
Okay? Before she gets rid of it. But changing those 2 zeros to 5s just by turning in a mediocre or something with her name on it, she's now got 10, 20 divided by she got a C.
Yeah.
Okay? She's got a C instead of an F minus.
Right.
And when they see that math, because they never, they want to say, yeah, but look, I did 3 things, I just didn't do 2. And it's like, yeah, but it's math.
Still zeros.
It's simple math. And when they see that math, so I always show them, power of 0, but for a not passing grade. Because out in the real world, and that's the other thing, if your job's payroll and you didn't do the payroll, if I go into the boss and I say, I didn't do the payroll, do you have extra work I can do? The boss is going to say, are you kidding me? Go do the payroll.
Right.
People are waiting to get paid. That's the real world. And when you explain it that way to them, it starts making sense. What is school? School is nothing more than teaching them how they're going to have to think in a real world setting.
It should be.
Okay?
For sure.
So if all I ever do is give them school, thinking school, setting, they don't make the connection. So sometimes you have to make that connection for them. Your job is payroll.
Right.
What you didn't do, that paper you didn't do, that's payroll. Your mom just didn't get her paycheck.
Right.
Okay? And you want to be able to just do extra filing. Okay? Your mom's going to say, I need my paycheck.
Yeah, totally. Going back, I wanted to cover one thing because it was when we were talking about the school site as far as like IB is concerned, and you were talking about how the history. It sounded like how history content would travel over. How does English?
How does English? English is the same way, and English actually is a lot cooler. And when you stop and think about this, okay, let's take a novel. In a traditional setting, I would say I'm going to teach the novel The Giver. Okay, and we're going to read The Giver, and we're going to have reading strategies. We're going to have maybe writing things. I might have them write an essay at the end about Jonas and the choices that he made, etc. In an IB setting, I'm not teaching The Giver. Okay, I am teaching perhaps the concept that, probably structures. Maybe I'm going to be teaching, looking at structures and change, okay? Because stop and think in the book, The Giver, Jonas is changing everything. I mean, he's taking this community that works perfect, where nobody's sick, right? Everybody has a job, nobody goes hungry, nothing spoils, and he is blowing it up, okay? That shouldn't be okay, and yet everybody's pulling for Jonas, right? So in the IB world, instead of teaching the book, The Giver, I'm teaching this concept of change, of maybe, government structures, so to speak. And I'm going to teach that using the book. Am I still doing reading strategies? Yeah. Okay. Am I still going to have quizzes on the content? Yeah. I'm still going to have writing things. But at the end, instead of having a test or a paper on The Giver, they're going to get a piece saying, how could you apply what you learned from The Giver, say, to the government structure of Turkey, or say to the school here at Cooper, okay? What can you take? Making that connection to your neighborhood, all right? Again, putting that student at the center. So it's always looking at concepts and the questions, and then taking it from the content, connecting to themselves.
Okay. And this is IB.
This is IB, yeah. Okay. And I always say, if I wasn't teaching at an IB school, I would still be an IB teacher.
Are we the only IB middle school in Fresno?
In Fresno, yes.
And then how are you feeling about Springboard this year? Oh, no, huh? No.
I am not the biggest fan of any canned curriculum, okay? And like I said to you before, anytime you put something in a can, it's that square peg, round hole. Things aren't going to fit. What we've done is taken the units from Springboard, and we have built IB units around them. We have found concepts, real concepts, because choices is not a concept. Choice is a thing.
I'm looking around, and so this
Springboard just got delivered.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you do.
And we will be starting our Springboard units next week. Right now, that goes slow to go fast. I'm building relationships this week.
It's heroes.
Yeah,
that's kind of, I kind of like grade. That. But
so what we're doing with that is, again, in the Springboard unit, and it's huge. Okay. It's the whole thing of discovering the hero, and then they write their own
hero's journey.
What we're doing is we're looking at defining a hero, and we're using the lessons out of it, but we're using it with the novel A Soldier's Heart, which ties with 8th grade history.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we're going to be taking all of the activities from that first Springboard unit, and layering it with the concepts I believe we came up with. It's over there. I think it's structures, relationships, and there's one other that we've layered it with, so that we'll be looking at reading Soldier's Heart, and then instead of writing a myth of a hero, writing a hero's journey, which again, you're looking at 8th grade, and they're wanting us to write a narrative at the beginning of the year when absolutely everything else is going to be expository, writing arguments, and they're going into high school. We're not going to spend all that time writing a narrative. We're going straight into what is the definition of a hero, looking at concept definition as a structure, because that's what they're going to need to have to do with others. So instead of spending the whole unit focusing on writing a narrative, we're doing the narrative as a little tiny piece, reading Soldier's Heart with that,
Right.
and then going into a concept definition essay.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about this. I want to hear about what you do, and if you have anything that you think like, oh my God, Miriam should.
I will
take a look
always
at
send
this,
things
I would
over
love
to
that.
you.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, I think I would like to share that with my students. I feel like I'm going into this year knowing what to expect from the curriculum. I'm just wondering. Still looking for ways on how to tweak it,
things you can say and things you cannot say. I think that oftentimes, and it's the same with any curriculum, there are too many activities and you don't get through them all. And the problem is when they tell you you have to do absolutely every activity, and yet at the same time they're holding these deadlines on you, they're setting you up at a fail. Last year, there's 4 units in Springboard. I don't know any school that finished all 4 of them.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
I think we made it through 1.5.
Yeah,
with my students.
Yeah, most places I know got through 2 and maybe got into the 3rd one, and so they've already set their kids up for missing more than half of the focus standards that they said were critical to being hit.
I understand that.
So then it's what's more important? Okay, in my opinion, it's more important to go deep. Okay, which means that I may be looking at, they have 15 activities in this unit, and they say this unit is only going to take 6 weeks, but with the way they have it structured, it really needed 13 weeks. So do I really need all 15 of those activities? Okay, in that defining a hero thing? Or can I say, the way I want to look at this and the way I'm focusing on it, can I take half of these and add the standards from the other activities into these so that this unit really is 8 weeks, which is what they want it to be.
Right. Okay. Do you guys do that as all the English teachers, do you guys get together?
We get together and decide how we're going to tackle.
And how often do you do that?
We get together every week.
Every week to do that?
Yeah, we get together every week. Last year we didn't have a common prep, which really made it hard. This year we're back to having a common prep, which makes it so much easier. So that means because we're on a block schedule, we'll have a common prep 2 days a week. And we've made the agreement here at the beginning of the year that we're using both of those common preps each week to work. By the time November or so comes, then our agreement is at least one of them. At least one of them.
How many? What do you mean at least one of them?
At least one of those common preps.
Oh, okay.
So we know we're going to have 2 common preps each week. At least one of them. We promise that we will come together looking at the units. Because that gives you the time, number one, to where are you? Are we sort of, kind of? Are we sort of, kind of? Are we within a day or 2 of each other? Great. But it also, what's working, what's not working. That's critical when you're looking, and I think it's the part that, again, canned curriculum doesn't allow for that reflection as you're going through it. And if you don't knowingly, when I'm teaching, no matter what, I've got Post-it notes constantly, and it's this is not working, what am I going to change for next year? I slap it on the page. Because the problem is I might not remember that until next year, and I open the book, oh yeah,
that would be
this didn't work.
Yes. I've been looking through some of my teacher books already, my teacher's editions, and I'm so glad I took notes. Because there's some stuff that you don't
remember until you look at it, and it's like, okay, this activity didn't fit here. And that was one of the things that we were talking. Just because they say it's 11 doesn't mean it really fits in 11. 11 doesn't fit until after you've done 15, so we're going to put 11 there, Yeah.
I'm not, you know what, we have to teach it. It's there, so I guess I'm looking forward to making it work for my students. Yeah. And not getting so stressed out over it like I did last year. Yeah. Yeah, that it wasn't happening. So, okay, so your qualifications to be here. You went to school.
I went to school in life.
Okay.
I went to the University of Nebraska right after high school. And then in my wisdom at 19 years old, I decided I'm moving to California. I moved to California at 19, and I sat out to establish residency 1 year. I went back to school, Fresno State. I was working full-time and going to school full-time. and I had a skydiving accident. I used to own Budweiser skydiving team, so
What?
yeah. Oh, that's a whole
You
story too.
owned it?
Yeah, my ex-husband and I we used to jump in. Now they have a new team, which is amazing. It's all women. But my ex-husband and I started the Budweiser skydiving team, and we used to do all the demonstration jumps.
That's
all over.
awesome.
So that was my
Do you
side
ever
job.
tell your students that?
Yes, in fact, I have a picture up there that I usually pull out,
that's
and
cool.
show.
That's cool.
But so then I didn't. Then I stopped school because I couldn't work and go to school full time. I was just, when you have an accident, there's just no way. And I didn't go back to college until I was 40.
Oh wow.
And
Me too.
yeah, that's the other thing why we get along so well. So I went back at 40 and finished my bachelor's at Fresno Pacific, and then did my credential program there. And then started teaching. I started at Tehipity, went from Tehipity. So I know your kids.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? I cut my teeth.
I know
your kids. I cut my teeth at Toronis and then Tehipity.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, I know your kids. Okay. And then Wawona and then here.
Oh wow.
So.
Okay, how long have you been here?
Since we started the IB program, this is year 6. Starting year 6.
When did you teach with Shelby?
Shelby and I taught at Tehipity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went on my very first home visit with Shelby. And Shelby is this tiny, petite, blonde, sweet looking woman, okay?
She was my mentor teacher last year at my school
and I would tell you, if you just look at her, you think, oh, they will eat her alive.
Right.
And they don't.
No.
I went on my first home visit, went into just the roughest apartment complex, and I am looking at her like, seriously? Seriously, you are taking me here? What? Okay. And she knocks on the door all nice, and they answer the door like, Miss Cush, oh, and everything changes as soon as they see her. The women can change worlds. Yeah.
She's neat. Yeah. She's neat. I'm honored to have had her last
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
No, she is amazing. So,
I didn't know her commitment was over, and I cried because I thought, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? But I'm fine.
You call her. She'll always answer.
Yeah,
she'll always
there,
answer.
And she's there. So, this is to describe my contact, but I think we've talked about it. We're in Jayne's classroom.
I'm 5'4" and I weigh 98 pounds, dripping wet, and there's no wrinkles at all.
So I hope that I have. I think I've gotten everything I'm supposed to, but thank you so much.
No,
I appreciate
thank you.
this.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to come, you can come into my world.
Well, I do have one more assignment after this, but I don't think it's on camera. So.
Okay, well, we can do that. On camera off, no problem.
Thank you so much.
Okay. See ya.
Bye. I'm going to shut this. Oh, thanks.